Jail, where terrible decisions meet paperwork and a very bored judge. 1. I once watched a grown man get cuffed over a library book like it was the crown jewels of Dewey Decimal. He'd moved apartments, missed a few notices, and somewhere between "I'll drop it off next week" and "new season of football," his copy of a 1998 carb-counting cookbook turned into a bench warrant with his name on it. Cut to a traffic stop for a busted taillight. The officer runs his ID and suddenly we're rolling to county over a spiral-bound diet manual older than Y2K. At booking, he tries to explain that late fees are essentially a subscription. The deputy, who has heard everything, replies, "Congratulations, you've been auto-renewed." The next morning, a judge waves it off with a "pay the fine, genius," but the mugshot lives forever. Imagine having to tell future employers you were once incarcerated for the dangerous crime of not returning recipes for broccoli casserole. 2. Here's a masterclass in self-sabotage. A guy reports his car stolen, panics on social media, and spends the evening rage posting about how society's falling apart. Turns out he'd parked on the next block because his usual spot was full, then Ubered home after wings night. The police find his stolen sedan exactly where he left it. And guess who's sitting in it the next morning? Coffee in hand. Yep. A patrol car rolls by, sees a vehicle flagged as stolen with a man in the driver's seat, and boom! Felony stop, awkward explanations, and a scenic ride to jail. In holding, he tries the classic defense. "Officer, I reported it stolen." The sergeant skims the report and says, "You did, from yourself." Charges get downgraded to filing a false report and wasting police time, and he gets a bill for the tow. The only thing more expensive than his pride? The impound fee. 3. And then there's the soda refill caper, America's tiniest heist. A dude strolls into a gas station deli with a cup from yesterday, beelines to the fountain, and commits 79 cents of unlicensed carbonation. The manager points to a sign the size of Montana. No outside cups, no free refills. Our hero argues it's not a refill if he emotionally intended to buy chips later. Security footage shows a daily pattern of stealth Sprite, so the manager calls the cops. Cue an arrest for theft of services that sounds like it should involve a lawyer and a yacht, but actually involves high-fructose corn syrup. Overnight in county, fluorescent lights humming, he tells his bunkmate he's a political prisoner of refill culture. The judge offers community service and a fine roughly equivalent to a year's worth of legitimate bubbles. He pleads out, buys water on the way home, and learns the hard way that crime doesn't pay, especially at 79 cents a cup. 4. There's a fine line between creativity and a felony, and one guy in Florida pole vaulted right overs it. He decided that sneaking into Disney World after hours would make a great TikTok. Armed with a GoPro, night vision goggles, and about 12% of a plan, he scaled a fence, triggered every motion sensor in a 5-mile radius, and was tackled by 3 security guards dressed like they just left a barbecue. His defense in court? "I wasn't trespassing, I was creating content." The judge, with the patience of 1,000 disappointed parents, asked if he'd ever considered buying a ticket. "Not as many views," he said. Turns out, jail doesn't get you many followers either. But hey, at least he finally got that exclusive, behind-the-scenes experience, complete with fingerprints and a free orange jumpsuit. 5. Some people get arrested for stealing cars. Others get arrested for stealing cars back. A man in Ohio had his old Chevy Impala towed and sold after he ignored parking tickets for months. Furious, he tracked down the buyer on Craigslist, showed up at the guy's house, and drove the car away using the spare key he still had. When police caught him, he tried explaining that it wasn't theft, it was repossession of my personal history. The cop, unimpressed, told him, "Buddy, nostalgia isn't legal tender." The man was booked for grand theft auto, and in a move worthy of karmic poetry, the tow company had to retrieve the car from the impound lot. Again. Somewhere in Ohio, there's a Chevy Impala that's been arrested more times than its owner. 6. You'd think streaking was a college prank best left in the 70s. But no, in 2023, a man in Nebraska decided that his town's 5K charity run needed more excitement. He stripped down to his sneakers and sprinted past families, strollers, and one extremely unimpressed mayor. Police chased him for nearly a mile before cornering him near the refreshment table. When asked why he did it, he said, "It's for charity." The officer, squinting, replied, "And what charity is that?" He grinned, the freedom of expression. The mugshot, unsurprisingly, featured only shoulders up. His bail was set at $1,000, roughly the same amount the event raised that day. Moral of the story: sometimes you can run for a cause. Sometimes the cause runs you straight into a holding cell. 7. Here's one for the Don't Text in Crime archives. A guy in Kentucky decided to rob a small gas station but wanted to let his getaway driver know when to roll up. He accidentally texted the wrong number, specifically the local sheriff. His message read, and I quote, "Yo, ready? He's alone. Bring the car." The sheriff responded, "Sure thing. Where you at?" and sent a patrol unit instead. The robber was caught mid-robbery, mid-text, mid-sentence. When asked what happened, he muttered, "I thought I had good signal." The cops thanked him for scheduling his own arrest and gave him a free overnight stay courtesy of county taxpayers. If criminal genius had a GPS, this guy's was permanently set to recalculate. 8. And then we have the man who tried to smuggle a chainsaw out of Walmart down his pants. You can't make this up. He thought that wearing extra baggy sweatpants would conceal the buzzing bulk of a literal chainsaw. Security cameras caught him waddling toward the exit like a penguin in a lumberjack costume. When confronted, he claimed it wasn't theft. It was a demonstration of flawed product design. The officers disagreed, noting that his alibi had more holes than his sweatpants. At booking, the deputy wrote the most understated line in police history. Suspect attempted to conceal power tool in trousers. The internet nicknamed him the Sawpants Bandit, which sounds like a rejected Marvel villain. The good news? He's now legally barred from both Walmart and power tools, probably for everyone's safety. 9. Some people get caught stealing jewelry, others get caught stealing ideas. But one woman in Arizona got arrested for stealing gasoline vapor. She was siphoning fumes. Yes, fumes, from a parked car using a vacuum cleaner hose taped to a bucket. Her explanation? It's the same thing, just lighter. The officer stood there, staring at a setup that looked like a meth lab designed by Wile E. Coyote, and said, "Ma'am, that's not how science works." When she realized she'd just been charged with theft of approximately 0 gallons, she tried to argue that she was saving the environment. The court disagreed. She got probation, a fine, and a lifetime ban from owning a siphon hose. Somewhere out there, a Prius owner still tells this story to gas station clerks like it's an urban legend. 10. A guy in California managed to get arrested while turning himself in. He showed up at the police station, drunk, demanding to collect his reward money. The officer at the desk said, "Sir, that's not how it works." To which he replied, "You've got my face on the wanted poster. I'm here. Where's my check?" After they confirmed he was indeed the suspect, he started celebrating, until he realized he wasn't leaving. His mugshot looks like someone told him Santa wasn't real halfway through Christmas dinner. The arresting officer later joked, "He made our job so easy, HR counted it as a training exercise. If there's ever a criminal hall of fame for most efficient arrest, this guy's getting a gold plaque and a breathalyzer." 11. In Oregon, a man tried to fake his own arrest to impress a Tinder date. He borrowed a friend's old police uniform, arrested himself outside a bar, and had his buddy film the stunt. The plan: go viral, look mysterious, get the girl. The problem: an actual off-duty officer saw him shoving himself into a patrol car that wasn't his and decided to intervene. The man was promptly, ironically, arrested for impersonating a police officer. His date filmed the whole thing, uploading it with the caption. He did say he liked roleplay. The video hit 1 million views, the charges stuck, and the judge told him, "You've clearly got the acting part down. Maybe try theater next time." 12. In Alabama, a guy got arrested for driving under the influence on a riding lawnmower. His truck had broken down, and instead of waiting for a tow, he hit the open road on his John Deere, beer in hand, country music blasting, doing 5 miles an hour in a 55 zone. When pulled over, he offered the officer a cold one and said, "Don't worry, it's only my second." The cop replied, "And this is your second DUI." The local paper ran the headline, "Man takes shortcut to jail." Literally. He told reporters afterward, "Next time I'm taking the tractor, it's faster." There are rural legends, and then there's this guy, the patron saint of poor decisions and lawn care. 13. Then there's the woman in Nevada who broke into a stranger's house to wash their dishes. She claimed she had an uncontrollable urge to tidy things. The homeowner returned to find their floors mopped, the sink sparkling, and a stranger humming along to 80s pop while scrubbing pans. When police arrived, she was folding towels and asking if they wanted coffee. Her only defense was that she was doing community service early. The judge called it the nicest break-in I've ever seen. She served a weekend in jail, but left behind the cleanest cell the county had ever seen. Somewhere, Marie Kondo is probably proud. 14. In Colorado, a man robbed a bank using his birth certificate as a note. He handed the teller a piece of paper that said, "Give me the money, no alarms," with his full legal name printed right across the top. He left with about $500 and a direct trail to his apartment. When cops arrived, he tried to deny everything, while standing next to an open bag of cash and the same handwriting on his grocery list. The detective later said, "It's like he wanted us to find him, and we did." The man's explanation? "I didn't have any blank paper." It's the first time in history someone's been arrested by their own stationery. 15. A man in Texas walked into a police station to complain about his stolen weed. He was furious, waving his arms, yelling about injustice. The officer calmly asked, "You mean someone stole your illegal drugs?" He nodded, indignant. "Yes, and I want them arrested." So the officer obliged, just not the person he expected. The man was booked for possession and obstruction, still protesting. "You're arresting the wrong guy." The officer replied, "No, we're arresting the dumb one." The police report listed it simply as self-initiated arrest. Somewhere in the evidence locker sits a bag of irony. 16. And finally, the guy who stole a police car to impress his mom. He'd just gotten out of jail and wanted to prove he was turning his life around. So naturally, he broke into a police cruiser parked outside the courthouse and drove it to her house. When she saw the flashing lights in the driveway, she fainted. He proudly told officers, "I just wanted her to see I could hold down a government job." The cops thanked him for the humor and cuffed him again. His mother's statement to the press said it best. He's got a good heart. It's just in the wrong jurisdiction. 17. Some people get stage fright. Others get court fright. A man in Wisconsin skipped his trial for shoplifting because, as he told police later, "I didn't have anything nice to wear." Ironically, they found him at the mall shoplifting a suit. When the cops asked why, he said, "I needed it for court." The officer blinked like his brain had blue-screened. "Sir, that's the trial you skipped." The man sighed. "Well, I was going to make an entrance." He did, through the courthouse side door in handcuffs, wearing the exact outfit he stole. The judge said, "Congratulations, you've just been convicted of the dumbest form of accessorizing." He served 60 days and probably learned that fashion can, in fact, be a crime. 18. In Pennsylvania, a guy tried to rob a pizza place using a banana. He jammed it into his jacket pocket like a gun, demanded cash, and yelled, "Nobody move!" The cashier, unimpressed, asked, "You mean the fruit?" He doubled down. "It's a weaponized fruit." When the police arrived, they found him sitting on the curb, eating the evidence. His lawyer later told reporters it was a potassium-fueled lapse in judgment. The DA's office called it the dumbest stick-up since slap bracelets. His sentence was reduced to probation, but the internet gave him life without parole in meme form. The case was literally titled Commonwealth vs. Banana Man, appealing justice at last. 19. You know those guys who think they're criminal masterminds because they watch too many heist movies? One of them tried to tunnel into a jewelry store in Oklahoma from the wrong building. He spent 2 nights digging through concrete, finally broke through and emerged triumphantly into a KFC. Covered in dust, he looked around, saw deep fryers instead of diamonds, and said, "This isn't the vault." Police found him asleep in the walk-in freezer, surrounded by chicken wings. When asked why he didn't stop digging sooner, he said, "I thought the smell of grease was a trick." The officer said, "It was, a trick called reality." The store owner later hung a sign over the new hole. Next door, genius. 20. A man in Utah got arrested for disorderly dancing. Yes, it's real. He broke into a car dealership after hours and blasted disco music from the loudspeakers. Security cameras captured him performing a full solo routine, complete with jazz hands, finger guns, and what appeared to be a very passionate moonwalk. When police arrived, he yelled, "I'm auditioning for my freedom," they replied. "You're about to get a callback. In county." His mugshot shows him mid-smile, clearly proud of his performance. The dealership pressed no charges for property damage, saying, honestly, the choreography was solid. Somewhere out there, a man is still serving time and probably teaching jazzercise to fellow inmates. 21. There's dumb, and then there's accidental arson dumb. In Tennessee, a guy tried to smoke out a raccoon under his porch. His method? Pour gasoline down the hole and light a match. The explosion was visible from 2 blocks away. When firefighters asked what happened, he said, "I didn't expect it to work that well." The fire destroyed half his porch, and the raccoon, who escaped unharmed, reportedly watched from a tree like, "Nice work, Einstein." He was charged with reckless endangerment and fined for property damage to his own property. His neighbor's GoFundMe description summed it up best. Man loses house in war against raccoon. Raccoon wins by knockout. 22. You ever hear of someone getting arrested for stealing their own car back? A man in New York lent his car to his cousin for a quick errand. The cousin vanished for 2 weeks. When the man finally found his vehicle parked outside a nightclub, he used his spare key to reclaim it. Unfortunately, the cousin had reported him for theft. When the police pulled him over, they asked, "Whose car is this?" He said, "Mine." They said, "That's not what the report says." He spent a night in jail trying to explain family drama to people who couldn't care less. The car was returned to him the next day, along with a court summons for disturbing the peace and probably a permanent family reunion ban. 23. A man in Georgia was caught breaking into a Dollar General not to steal, but to return something. He'd stolen a pack of batteries the week before, realized they were dead, and decided to bring them back for an exchange. He entered through a broken window at 3 a.m., set the batteries on the counter, and left a note that said, "Defective. Please restock." When police found him on camera, he argued it wasn't burglary because he was restoring balance to the economy. The judge called it the dumbest return policy violation in U.S. history. He served 1 month and probably still owes the store manager an apology, or at least a working pack of AAs. 24. And finally, the man who robbed a liquor store with a potato. He carved it like a fake gun, covered it with a sock, and demanded money. The cashier, unimpressed, said, "That's a potato." He panicked and threw it at her. It missed, hit a shelf, and exploded in a spray of starch and shame. He ran outside, tripped over a parked scooter, and was arrested before he even reached the corner. During interrogation, he claimed it was a statement against the fast food industry. The officer said, "Buddy, this isn't performance art." The DA, unable to keep a straight face, actually entered the potato as Exhibit A. It's probably still in evidence storage, rotting quietly, a monument to the day someone tried to commit armed robbery with side dishes. 25. Some people rob banks for money, others do it for attention. But one man in Kansas robbed a bank just to get away from his wife. After a long argument, he walked into a local branch, handed the teller a note that read, "Give me $1, I'm not kidding," and calmly sat in the lobby waiting for police. When asked why, he said, "I'd rather be in federal prison than in that house one more night." The judge, possibly a married man himself, sentenced him to 6 months, exactly enough time for both parties to cool off. His wife reportedly sent him letters every week, all unopened, labeled "Return to Sender." Moral: communication saves relationships. Bank robbery does not. 26. A guy in New Jersey thought he'd hacked the system when he tried to fake his own death to avoid paying traffic tickets. He typed up a death certificate using Microsoft Word, complete with Comic Sans font and a seal clip art. Unfortunately, he forgot to remove the program's watermark that said "Created in free trial version." The clerk who received it laughed so hard she framed it. Police arrested him for forgery, but honestly, they probably should have given him an award for creative failure. In court, he said, "I didn't think they'd look that closely. Buddy, if you're going to die on paper, at least pick a better font." 27. Sometimes fate has a sense of humor. A man in Idaho broke into a police academy thinking it was an abandoned building with cool stuff inside. He walked past a dozen cop cars, threw a sign that literally said "Police Training Facility," and started rummaging through lockers. When an officer in uniform confronted him, he said, "Oh, thank God you're here. I think someone broke in." The cop just blinked. "Yeah, you." They arrested him mid-monologue. During booking, he told them he was looking for valuable evidence. The arresting officer replied, "You found it. Your fingerprints." The man's new nickname in county jail? Sherlock Nope. 28. A tourist in Las Vegas decided to test the myth that what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Spoiler: It doesn't when it involves public nudity and a slot machine. Security footage showed him stripping naked after winning $18, claiming he wanted to be one with the jackpot. He danced on the casino floor, shouting, "I'm untouchable!" before slipping on his own celebratory beer and knocking himself out cold. He woke up in cuffs, covered with a casino-branded towel, while a pit boss quietly whispered, "Sir, you've officially lost your comps." His winnings were confiscated for damages. The court called it a case study in immediate karma. 29. A man in North Carolina was arrested after trying to fake being invisible. Yes, invisible. He'd watched a viral TikTok where someone claimed to sell quantum invisibility spray for $20. So he ordered it, sprayed himself, and attempted to shoplift from a convenience store while humming the Mission Impossible theme. The cashier, understandably confused, just stared at the floating bag of Doritos moving toward the door. When cops arrived, he yelled, "You can see me?" The officer replied, "Unfortunately, yes." His lawyer later told reporters, "It's the first time I've had to explain to a judge what TikTok is." 30. There's a saying that crime doesn't pay. One man in Louisiana decided to test that, literally. He tried to cash a stolen check at a bank with the words "Do not cash fraud" already stamped across it in red ink. When the teller pointed it out, he shrugged and said, "That's just a suggestion." He waited patiently as she verified the check, which was really her calling the cops. When they arrived, he asked if he could at least keep the complimentary pen. The officer said, "Sure, you earned it." The judge sentenced him to community service and advised him to try a savings account next time. 31. A man in Oregon tried to rob a house using his own debit card as a lockpick. When police found the card jammed in the door, it had his full name, account number, and signature clearly visible. He denied everything, saying, "Lots of people have that name." Unfortunately, that name also matched the ID in his pocket and the tattoo on his arm. When they read him his rights, he said, "So, are we just going to ignore how strong this door is?" The arresting officer replied, "Yeah, but not as strong as your bad decisions." Somewhere, a locksmith is still telling that story to apprentices as a cautionary tale about mixing stupidity and banking. 32. And finally, the man who tried to hide from police by pretending to be a statue. In Florida, because of course it was Florida, a drunk guy ran from a bar fight and froze in front of an art gallery's outdoor display. The officers found him standing perfectly still next to a bronze sculpture of a fisherman. For a moment, it almost worked, until he sneezed. When they told him to put his hands up, he slowly said, "Statues don't move." The cop answered, "This one's about to." He was arrested without incident, but the gallery later invited him back for an exhibit called "Man Who Stood Still." Sometimes art really does imitate life. 33. There's always that one guy who thinks he's smarter than the cops because he watches CSI. Meet the man from Colorado who tried to erase his fingerprints with sandpaper. Not gloves, not bleach, hardware store sandpaper. He didn't even bother with fine grit. When he got arrested for shoplifting, the officer noticed his hands looked like he'd been high-fiving a belt sander. He proudly explained his plan, saying, "You can't dust for what's not there." The cop replied, "You're right. You can just match the bloody prints you left everywhere else." His mugshot shows him wrapped in bandages like a disappointed mummy. The judge said it best. "That's not criminal genius, that's DIY stupidity." 34. In Texas, a man tried to sneak contraband into jail using a carrier pigeon. Old school, sure, but this one was less Message from Alcatraz and more Looney Tunes. He attached a baggie of cigarettes and lighters to the bird's leg and released it outside the prison walls. The plan might have worked, except the pigeon landed right on the warden's car. The warden picked up the bird, saw the payload, and said, "Well, that's one way to deliver evidence." The man was sentenced to an extra year for smuggling, and the pigeon was declared a witness who will not be cross-examined. Somewhere, there's a tiny feathered criminal with better flight instincts than his owner. 35. A Florida woman called 911 to report a burglary, then got arrested herself. When police arrived, they found no break-in, no missing items, and her standing in the kitchen with a half-eaten pizza. She told them the burglar must have stolen her vibes. The officer asked, "Ma'am, are you under the influence?" She said, "No, I'm under attack from negative energy." They asked to look around. On the counter sat 3 empty wine bottles, a Ouija board, and what appeared to be a burnt grilled cheese in the shape of Elvis. She was charged with misuse of emergency services, but became a local legend after the dispatcher leaked the call. "He stole my aura." It's still used in 911 training as the gold standard of delusional enthusiasm. 36. A man in Washington got arrested after calling the police to brag about not getting caught. He just escaped a minor traffic stop by turning down a side street, then called 911 to taunt the system. His exact words, "Y'all slow today, I'm gone, baby." The dispatcher calmly kept him talking, pretending to transfer him to the Hall of Fame department. They traced the call within 3 minutes. He was still on the phone when officers pulled up behind him at a red light. The arresting cop said, "Congratulations, you just prank called yourself into custody." In his defense, his GPS was on silent, but his ego was loud enough for both. 37. A man in Kentucky got caught robbing a gas station because he stopped mid-heist to buy snacks. Security footage shows him stuffing cash into a bag, then politely asking the clerk for one of those chocolate muffins too. When police later arrested him, he said, "What? I was hungry." The cop replied, "You were almost free." He shrugged, "Freedom's overrated. Muffins are forever." His lawyer told reporters it was a moment of low blood sugar and poor judgment. The judge countered, "No, that's just a breakfast felony." The convenience store framed the receipt, labeled "Evidence of Hunger Defeating Logic." 38. A man in Michigan was caught smuggling drugs inside a prosthetic leg. That's dumb enough, but what made it legendary was how he got caught. During a police chase, he tried to run, and his leg fell off. It rolled down the sidewalk and spilled the contraband. The officer chasing him said, "That's the first time I've had to chase a suspect in his limb." In the report, they listed the leg as Evidence A mobile container. In court, the man insisted he was framed, but the judge replied, "Framed? You were detached." Even the jury laughed. If irony were a crime, he'd still be serving time. 39. In Missouri, a burglar broke into a house and decided to take a nap. Not because he was tired from crime, because he thought it would be less suspicious if the homeowners found him pretending to live there. He tucked himself into their guest bed, set the alarm clock, and even drank a cup of milk before dozing off. When the family came home, they found him snoring and clutching their TV remote. Police woke him up gently, mainly because they didn't want to startle someone dumb enough to sleep in the evidence. When asked why he thought this would work, he said, "I wanted to blend in." The officer replied, "You blended into a felony." 40. And finally, a man in Ohio was arrested for robbing a store with a boomerang. Yes, a literal wooden boomerang. He walked in, waved it like a weapon, and demanded cash. The clerk, barely containing laughter, said, "You know that thing comes back, right?" He didn't believe her until he threw it during his getaway. It hit him square in the head on camera. The footage became local TV gold. When police found him dazed in a nearby alley, they asked, "Did your weapon turn on you?" He said, "I didn't think it worked like that." The detective later called it a case of instant karma, brought to you by Australian physics. 41. Some criminals plan their heists for months. Others wing it like a bad improv show. A man in Oregon robbed a donut shop, directly across the street from a police station. He walked in with a paper bag on his head, grabbed the cash drawer, and ran out, only to trip over a curb and scatter money across the street. Cops literally watched the whole thing from their office window. One officer later said, "We didn't even have to put our donuts down." When they caught him, the bag was still on his head. During booking, he said, "I thought the station was closed." The cop replied, "We work nights too, genius." They found a receipt in his pocket from that same shop. He'd been there 10 minutes earlier buying coffee. That's what you call a customer loyalty fail. 42. In Georgia, a man called the police to report his missing bag of meth. He said he was tired of being ripped off by dishonest dealers. The dispatcher thought it was a prank, but he insisted they send an officer immediately. They did. When they arrived, he produced an empty baggie like it was Exhibit A. "See? They took my stuff." The officer said, "So, you're admitting you had meth?" He blinked. "Well, yeah, but that's not the point." The report labeled the incident. Suspect self-reports narcotics theft, appears disappointed in police service quality. He got 90 days and one very awkward Yelp review of law enforcement. 43. In Alabama, a man tried to break into a vending machine with a crowbar but got his arm stuck in the snack chute. He was trapped for 2 hours until maintenance found him. wrist-deep in Cheetos and regret. When police arrived, he claimed he wasn't stealing, just reaching for justice. The officer said, "Looks like justice bit back." They had to dismantle the machine to free him, and he still didn't get the chips. The vending company pressed charges and, according to the manager, restocked that row with granola bars out of spite. Somewhere, there's security footage of the world's slowest, cheesiest crime. 44. A woman in Utah got arrested for calling 911 because her McDonald's order was wrong. She wanted extra pickles. They gave her none. She called the dispatcher 4 times demanding an officer of justice to correct the pickle crisis. When police arrived, she pointed at her sandwich like it was a crime scene. "This is fraud," she declared. The cop looked at her, then at the burger, then at his watch. "Ma'am, people are out there robbing banks." She replied, "Yeah, but are they hungry?" She was arrested for misuse of emergency services and banned from that McDonald's for life. The next day, the local paper ran the headline, "Justice Served Without Pickles." 45. In Nevada, a man tried to fake amnesia to avoid a court date. He showed up in sunglasses, carrying a note that said, "I forgot who I am." Unfortunately, he also forgot to change out of the t-shirt that had his name embroidered on it from his job. When the judge asked if he remembered committing the crime, he said, "What crime?" She replied, "The one where you stole 42 t-shirts just like that." The courtroom laughed, and he dropped the act. "All right," he said, "you got me." The judge sighed. "If only your memory worked as hard as your excuses." 46. A man in Montana was arrested for trying to pay his bar tab with a live rattlesnake. He pulled it out of a duffel bag, set it on the counter, and said, "This is worth at least $40. The bartender screamed, everyone ran, and the man, confused, tried to explain that it's local currency. Police showed up minutes later to find him standing outside, holding the snake like a wallet. "It's legal tender if it's alive," he argued. It wasn't. The sheriff said, "We don't do reptile economics here." He was charged with disorderly conduct and animal cruelty. And the snake, thankfully, was released back into the wild, probably wondering what kind of idiots humans are. 47. In Florida, of course, a man tried to escape arrest by hiding in a swamp. He spent 6 hours crouched in waist-deep water, surrounded by alligators, before realizing the cops hadn't even been chasing him. They were responding to a different call. When a helicopter finally spotted him, he yelled, "Don't shoot! I surrender!" The pilot radioed back, "Buddy, we weren't looking for you." They pulled him out, shivering, covered in mud, and charged him anyway for trespassing and stupidity. The arrest report simply read, "Suspect apprehended during unsolicited surrender." He later told reporters, "I panicked." The gators probably thought, "Dinner canceled." 48. And our grand finale. A man in California broke into a home, took a shower, cooked dinner, and then offered the homeowners a plate when they came home. "I made spaghetti," he said. "There's plenty." They stared, frozen, as he explained that their house had good energy. When police arrived, he tried to serve them too. "You guys hungry?" he asked, holding out a fork. The arresting officer said, "Sir, you can't bribe us with carbs." The man sighed. "Then, can I at least finish my garlic bread?" The cops actually let him. The judge later said, "I've seen burglars take cash, jewelry, even pets, but this is the first time one stole my appetite." So there you have it. 48 ways humanity has proven that handcuffs aren't just for criminals. They're for the terminally stupid. Which one deserves the Lifetime Achievement Award in idiocy? Drop your vote below. And remember, crime doesn't pay, but it sure does entertain.